the Sarasota Film Society, thanks for having us. I don't think this thing's been projected probably since it came out 15 years ago. But anyway, how many people here saw it for the first time tonight? Wow. Oh, that's pretty good. All right, I'm going to remember you guys. I wonder who's seen it the most times in here besides probably me. You know? How many times?
Probably seen it about 10 times.
Nice. Wow. Thanks for the residuals. They're putting my kids through college. Anyway, well, we're here. We're here, and we'll answer any questions. So please, who's got a question about the film? Hans.
Yeah, any thoughts about possible doing another one of these?
As a matter of fact, I've always thought that this thing left itself open for a sequel. I felt this is kind of the Pepsi Light version of that story. When I was researching this, I read so many amazing stories of tragedy and triumph, of people that unbelievable stories of survival. And one story I read was the story of the biggest tornado that ever hit this country, which was the Tri-State tornado of March 18th, 1925. It was called the Tri-State. But I have to preface this. A significant tornadic event is a tornado that stays on the ground maybe a half a minute. This tornado stayed on the ground 3.5 hours. A significant tornado might be 50 yards wide. This was 1.5 miles to 2 miles wide. A normal or average traveling speed, most tornadoes move north to northeast, would be maybe a fast tornado might move 40 miles an hour. This tornado was clocked at 68 miles an hour. This thing was called the Tri-State because it came down on the afternoon of March 18, 1925 over the Ozarks of Missouri, and it crossed the Mississippi River gathering strength, and then it did its most damage and took its most, the most death toll was in southern Illinois, and then it crossed the Wabash River and went into Indiana. And I always thought the old timers, we took a trip down there, Scott and I, about 2 years ago. I'd always wanted to go and kind of track the trail of this tornado and see if there were any people who still could remember the stories. And so we flew to St. Louis. This was 2 years ago, and we drove down to Ellington, Missouri, and one of the first people we met was an elderly woman. That's probably my wife. It's Steven Spielberg.
All right. We've been waiting for it.
Wait, you want to do a sequel to Twister? It's so funny you should go. I'm with Scott Thompson. No, he didn't get killed in the first one. But anyway, we went on an amazing trip for about a week. We tracked the trail of this tornado, and we got into Murfreesboro in southern Illinois. This town was about 25,000 people that morning. It killed about, I think, 600 people in that town. And the pictures of that town, it looks like they dropped an atomic bomb on this place. And the old timers there say, well, if it happened once, it could happen again. So I've always thought there was maybe more of a Jaws-like version in this story, a little more butch, a little more PG-13. I mean, we're running around, and hey, we'll be okay. These pipes go down 30 feet. Hey, let me borrow your belt for a second. Whoa, hey, we're going upside down. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Scott Thompson.
Oh, God.
No, go ahead, Scott.
I don't
Give
know
us
where
a
to
clever
begin.
anecdote.
Oh God! Well, it was a little difficult at first. Getting in and out of that flying cow costume. I don't know. No, but Bill did all the heavy lifting, and he had Helen as his ex-wife and Jamie Gertz as his wife-to-be, and what's it with you and all these wives?
I don't know. I'm playing with them.
But so there was a lot of shooting with the trio there. So we had a lot of off time, but the director was very adamant that we had to be close by. So, you know, we're in the middle of a cornfield, you know, the harmonica, waiting to do something. And, you know, it was a little unfortunate that a lot of characters weren't as finely drafted as we would like to be. We were sort of a centipede, the group. We're sort of joined at the hip. We're like this hydra, you know, just pulling together. And I tried to approach Jan, you know, trying to, you know, as the actors do. It's like, well, they call me the preacher. It's like, why, you know? And he said, you're the preacher.
He's talking about Jan de Bont, the director of Twister. Yeah.
Can we dig a little deeper there? And I said, what if, okay, here's my take on it. Maybe, you know, I'm a preacher's son, and I went over to science, you know, and he nodded and patted me on the shoulder and said, yeah, you're the preacher. Okay. So I just sort of realized, well, you know, really the star is the tornado, and, you know, you have your little backstory, but that's kind of for yourself and nobody else.
Let me jump in for a second.
Okay.
I got cast with Helen. We were the first two casts, and they started casting all the other storm chasers. And Scott and I, we go way back. We've been in a lot of different things together. And I said, you know, you ought to get up for this movie. There's a lot of these storm chasers. They're guys, you know, friends and buddies. They're all running around. And so Scott got to audition for the film in New York. And I guess Jan de Bont, the director, had taken a suite at some hotel in Midtown in New York and was seeing actors. And what he was doing was he was putting them through, just because this dialogue, they were almost like the Greek chorus in the story. So a lot of the stuff was going to be improvised and kind of on the fly. And if they were waiting for a shot, they might do a shot of them. So he was kind of throwing these actors into these improv situations, and so I'm telling this secondhand.
Right.
But Scott told me he was in there, and Jan says to me, he says, okay, the storm is coming, and you have to find shelter. What are you going to do? And Scott, you're in a hotel suite. So what does Scott do? He pulls off his belt and starts trying to lash himself to the leg of a table. And Jan was like, oh, you're crazy. It's so funny. I love you.
Yeah. Now the kicker is they said that's great, and I'm actually leaving the hotel room, and there's other actors in the little lobby of the suite, and I have my belt. All the actors.
Actors will do anything for John, and I mean anything.
Oh man.
It was quite an adventure. Yeah.
It appears to be 40 credits for special effects people in the
At
film.
least.
And
Probably.
I'm used to saying 4 or 5 or 6. What would 40 special effects people be doing?
Well, so much of this movie had to be done in post-production. I remember they would lay out these, with surveying instruments, they'd lay out all these poles, and they had these fluorescent tennis balls on them. And that would give them, and I guess it would be for where they were going to place the tornado in the shot. So there must have been hundreds of people. I think a lot of this was done with ILM, which was the biggest outfit at the time. But the funny thing about that, you're talking about the flying cow, which is probably the biggest gag in the movie, and you know, kids love it. But I remember Jan got a little frustrated with us. There's a lot of stories about Jan on this. He was kind of a tornado force in a way. He directed Speed, which made him an A-list director, and so this was his follow-up to that. Even though the picture was produced by Steven Spielberg's producer Kathy Kennedy. Spielberg, I only met about a year after I did the film. I met him, and he said, "Thanks for making me a lot of money."